Hello, Year 5, Miss Warren here. Hope you're well. Today I'm going to be reading you the 12th chapter of Fing by David Walliams. Now, as usual, what I'd like to do is identify any new and exciting words and define them. Right, let's get into it.
Chapter 12. Some light reading. At dawn the next morning, Mr. Meek set off on his quest to find a Fing. He had cast aside his bookish persona and had now turned himself into an adventurer. Well, sort of. The man had put bicycle clips over the bottom of his trousers in case he snagged them on some undergrowth. Poor Mrs. Meek was very tearful at the doorstep. Since the day they were married, the pair of librarian lovebirds had never spent a single night apart. Please be careful, father," implored Mrs. Meek. Mr. Meek was trying to be brave, though it was not his strong suit. "Don't you worry, mother. I'll be back with a Fing before you know it. What's the absolute worst that could happen?"
"You could get eaten,"
called Myrtle from an upstairs window. "Thank you for your contribution, my angel sent from heaven," called father. He smiled weakly at his wife. "I will do my absolute best not to." "Promise," she implored. "I promise." They kissed awkwardly. Their kisses were always awkward. Either their noses knocked, or their chins bumped, or their glasses crunched. Today their foreheads clunked together. "Ouch! Sorry. Mr. Meek picked up his suitcase, took a deep breath, and walked down a path. "I miss you already," called out Mrs. Meek. "Yuckety yuck yuck yuck," came a cry from upstairs. Mr. Meek blew a kiss back to his wife, which, fumbling, she caught. "Move your bottom!" shouted Myrtle. Father picked up the pace and with his suitcase in hand began walking to the bus stop. In his socks and sandals, shirt, tie, slacks and tweed blazer, he looked nothing like a jungle explorer. Having never left his local town before, he was woefully unprepared. The only food he'd bought was a packed lunch that Mother had made him. It consisted of 1. A bread sandwich. Father didn't like fillings as they were distracting. 2. A packet of flavourless crisps. No flavours, please, thank you kindly. 3. A plain yoghurt, just like he liked them. As is often the way with packed lunches, Father had scoffed the lot within 5 minutes of setting off from home, sitting on the bus to the airport. Soon after, he became cataclysmically hungry and resorted to eating the plastic box in which his lunch had been packed. He ended up rather liking the taste, as there was none. In his suitcase, Mr. Meek had packed an anorak in case of rain, and spare pairs of underpants and socks. He'd also bought some light reading, a small selection of his favourite books from home, a history of cauliflower, boring buildings of Britain ponds, a closer look at gravel, tissues around the world, 101 poems about leaves, a spotter's guide to sandals, church pews through the ages, a million times tables, light bulbs, and more light bulbs. Plus, he had taken out of the library the book that had led him on this quest, the Monsterpedia. It was wriggling around in his suitcase. He just had to remember to return it within 2 weeks or there would be a hefty fine to pay. Of course, Mr. Meek had made some room for the most important items of all, the special Fing capturing equipment. First, a rusty old hamster's cage that he'd found up in the loft, into which to put the Fing. Second, a giant tin of the Fing's favourite food, custard cream biscuits. These were to lay a trail to tempt the Fing into the hamster's cage as soon as he had spotted one. Mr. Meek's plan really was that simple. How could it possibly go wrong?